Today we're going to be talking about gender and sexuality. Some of the topics we're going to cover are the biological, social, and cognitive influences on gender stereotypes, the similarities and differences between genders, and classifications of gender development through the lifespan, exploring sexuality, and sexuality through the lifespan. So first, biological, social, and cognitive influences on gender. You need to understand a few basic terms. So first, when we're talking about gender, we're talking about characteristics of people as males and females. There's gender identity, which is a person's sense of their own gender, including their knowledge, understanding, and acceptance of being male or female. There's gender roles, which are sets of expectations that prescribe how females or males should think, feel, and act. So you might think about, for example, traditional gender roles. In traditional gender roles, it might be the expectation that the man goes to work and the woman stays home with the kids. But gender roles in recent years have become much more fluid. And then there's gender typing. This is how we acquire traditional masculine or feminine roles. So if you've ever been in a toy aisle, you can really see this, where the girls' aisle is pink and it's full of dolls and toy kitchens and things like that. And then the boys' aisles are full of cars and trucks and quote unquote action figures, not dolls, action figures. And even when people are pregnant, if they find out if it's a boy or a girl, we're already assigning colors to boys or girls. So the gender typing process really starts early and is pretty pervasive. Some biological influences on gender. Gender is mostly influenced by two classes of hormones. These are estrogens and androgens. During prenatal development, male and female embryos initially look identical, and then they change as a result of hormonal secretions. So in males, there's a gene on the Y chromosome, and that creates a cascade of changes that directs the formation of the testes, which then begin to secrete testosterone. If that particular gene on the Y chromosome doesn't activate, or if the person doesn't have a Y chromosome, then that process doesn't happen. Estrogens are the sex hormones that influence female physical sex characteristics and help to regulate the menstrual cycle. Androgens are the sex hormones that promote development of male genitals and secondary sex characteristics. So when you think about beards and deepening voice and things like that, those are examples of secondary sex characteristics. In men, the most important androgen is testosterone. So these levels of hormones, brought about often by whether or not there's a Y chromosome present, tend to create the physical differences between males and females. But it doesn't always work as clean cut as that. Sometimes you have someone who is what's called intersex, where these hormone levels haven't gone very much one way or the other. You basically have a mix of the two. There's also social influences on gender. Remember, the term gender is about your identity and your roles and how you feel. So, one influence on gender is explained by social role theory. Social role theory says that psychological gender differences result from the contrasting roles of men and women. Cultural differences in social hierarchy and division of labor lead people to adapt by adopting certain traits. So, historical power imbalances between men and women over the course of human existence have led to these changes in a way that that people adopt roles and expectations among themselves. Then there's also social cognitive theory. This proposes that children's gender development occurs through observation, imitation, and either reward or punishment. So, this is influenced greatly by how peers or media react to children, how parents react to them, how schools and teachers treat boys and girls, whether they treat them equally or if there are subtle differences in the ways that they treat them or have expectations of them. You might see, for example, we tend to be more accepting of girls playing with stereotypically masculine toys than of boys playing with stereotypically feminine, the boys playing with stereotypically feminine toys. So if you have a parent that freaks out if their son is playing with dolls, then that child is going to learn, oh, this is not considered appropriate. I shouldn't do this. There's something wrong with liking dolls because I'm a boy or something like that. So again, this is just social influences in how we develop this sense of who we are as male or female, and what that means for us and that sort of thing. This brings us to cognitive influences on gender. According to social cognitive theory, observation, imitations, and rewards and punishment are the mechanisms of gender development. It's just the process of how this actually happens. And what's going on there is that is through that process, children are developing gender schemas. Gender schema theory says that gender typing emerges as children gradually develop gender schemas of what is gender appropriate and gender inappropriate behavior or characteristics in their culture. So these gender schemas organize the world in terms of male and female. What does it mean to be male? What does it mean to be female? And then as a function of how we identify ourselves. So, if this is what it means to be female and I know myself and feel myself to be female, then this is how I should act. So that's the cognitive process by which this works. And children are motivated in a lot of different ways to act in ways that conform to gender schemas.